Hello and welcome to Papilica. I'm Jill and I'm going to be in this video talking about archangels. I'm going to start off explaining what we mean by archangels, and that will involve looking at the science of grace, because I'm not just using metaphor. There's something real about this energy of archangels that impacts on our psyche. Okay, so I'll be explaining that a little bit, and then I'll also be introducing our archangel for this month. If you're following the channel, you'll know that we're taking the 12 archangels of Atlantis. Okay, we've been using this book and not following in sequence, but taking an angel a month as inspired and really kind of working with that energy, inviting that energy in. And it's a journey of discovery, and it's just really been quite good sharing about people's experiences on that. So if you're not already subscribed, please join us for this journey. We're in month 3. We've had Uriel, we've had Zaphkiel, and I'll be introducing our angel for the month of November in this video as well. So firstly, what I want to say is that when I talk about archangels, I could use angel cards, and if I were to use angel cards, they would possibly depict a person, an androgynous figure, usually with wings, and dressed in robes and perhaps with a sword, and you know the thing. But that is simply one way of understanding them, because we're talking about force fields, interdimensional beings that can show up in the physical and can kind of shape shift, I suppose. But that convention may not be very helpful for you, because I think you might dismiss it more helpful. So this is the idea that came to me. I mentioned only yesterday, I was doing a live stream, and I mentioned about how our minds are a little bit like having a bucket in an ocean. Okay, so think of a bucket. It's a plastic bucket that you place in an ocean, except this bucket isn't plastic. When we're talking about our mind, it's a lot more porous than that. So think of some other kind of material, something that is absorbent, like some kind of fabric that's just meshed, intermeshed. And so that in a sense your mind is contained, your thoughts, but there is a kind of leakage out of your mind, because you're always contributing to the collective, but also inwards, because you're absorbing from the collective. Okay, so whatever is in the collective unconscious, that's this infinite field, you're going to be influenced and affected by. And when we talk about using the archangels, what we're doing is we're deciding, we're taking a bit more control over that, because you see that process to a great extent is unconscious. We don't realise it, we think all our thoughts are our own. So one way we can think about archangels, especially if you're not entirely comfortable with the thought of invoking the archangels or praying to them or asking for their help, as though it's a separate being, you know, that you're suddenly feeling that you've got some allegiance to, and that doesn't sit comfortably with you, then I would suggest an alternative way that's come into my mind, and that is of seeing them as a kind of filter for this container. So just as the collective unconscious is this vast, open, infinite field of possibility and potential, and you as a container, your mind, the separate mind, the personal mind, has this kind of this fabric that absorbs from the collective unconscious. You want to be selective about what is coming in. And so you could think of it as a filter that you use, that you put in place. When you're inviting in a particular archangel, you're saying this particular energy, this force field of possibility and potential is the one I am choosing. And I like this idea of filters because we use it in photography, don't we? You can get those apps for your phone where you have 20, 30 different filters, and each one you select, the actual image itself doesn't change. So if we're using this analogy, the image is representing your mind, your personal mind, but the different filter that is used will bring out different qualities. So some of them have a characteristic of, they might be more dramatic, some are warm, and some are cool, and some are sepia, and they all create a different kind of feel and mood. So there's an emotional quality when you look at that photograph. You know, it's bringing something, communicating something different each time. And so the 12 archangels available to us in this infinite field are like filters we can select. And this month we're going to be selecting Angel Zaphkiel. Okay, so last month we had Zaphkiel. It's actually the next angel along in the book. And as I was looking through it, so we've got Zaphkiel here. Remember last time? And then we have Zaphkiel. Okay? And the reason that Zaphkiel has shown up is because he is sacred lover. And we've been looking at Dark Night of the Soul, and the central imagery in that, the central metaphor it uses is of this intimate union with the beloved. And that's the way it describes the drive towards home, towards God, towards completion. It's the closest metaphor that we have available to us to describe what that feels like, that completion, that union. Great souls aspire to be enraptured by the all that is in love. And if you look at that image that's used there, we've got this lovely orange glow, and then you've got these images here that are very sensual. Okay, and I'm just going to read immediately from this book by Stuart Pearce. I don't know if you know Stuart Pearce. You can watch him on YouTube. He has a channel, and he's really very articulate, very eloquent, and quite sort of flamboyant as well. He does a lot of coaching on the use of the voice, so when he does project his voice, he has this lovely warm resonance, and he's a bit like a Shakespearean actor. And I can hear him as I read these words. I can imagine him speaking them. So it says, the sacred orange carnelian love ray of the extraordinary angel, of this extraordinary angel, rains upon us from somewhere utterly supreme, from the core of the love light circuitry of the source. It is drenched in the compassion, ecstasy, romance and surrender of the cosmic order of the divine feminine frequency. It is transported by the phosphorescence of silver rain which resonates from the electrical frequency of the soul. It is suffused with the very breath of God. This is the force of the great soul that was once reluctant before entering the body of clay millennia ago. This is the soul that was then enchanted by the ecstasy of the seraphic music This relates to the seraphim and faced only one choice: to be embodied. Now, I'll just carry on reading a little bit of this. The nature of this love light folds into our physical world through varying octaves or degrees, to eventually cascade into our physical bodies if we are willing to be sweetly held by its love. Notice this imagery of embracing the beloved. This brings incandescence into our carbon beings, a force that literally slips through the space-time continuum and illuminates our path with with sublime ecstasy. I was distracted then because when I read, it brings incandescence into our carbon beings, I was thinking about the reconnective healing, which works by energy, light and information, and I am personally convinced more and more as we're studying the angelics and as it's coming into my mind how I am to understand the archangels, that reconnective healing actually does change your very DNA, and which is your very body is being activated by light, and that really does have an impact on your health, on your well-being, on the fact that you don't get ill as often, and that you live longer, that your skin just looks brighter. It almost has this anti-aging effect, which is a good enough reason to do it, to do this angelic work. But the name he mentions here, Zaphkiel. There are so many different spellings of it, so I'm going to ask you for your homework just to do a bit of research. I've started you off with some of the words here. If you look on Wikipedia, I've just put that on now. I've just put my laptop on, and it brings you the time up. I don't know if I'll be able to show you, but the time was 11:11. It's not going to show me now. It's not going to show me. It's there really tiny up at the top, 11:11. These little signs, they like to play with. It came up on my full screen when I first picked it up. Look, many different ones. I've written them down, and I've just got two more to write down. I'll do that for you now. So, all of those different ways of saying the name, it refers to the same angel. Okay, so we've got the Zaph sound there with the TZ at the beginning, and then these many different spellings. All right, so this is the main one that we're using, and as I say, you can do your homework, research, find out what the history is of this angel and what its associations are and what energy it can bring in and how it can help you. But I'm picking up that it's the sacred lover because that's the theme that we've been working with. And I just picked up this morning Dark Night of the Soul, and I opened it up a lot further along in the book. I just opened it at the page anywhere, and I just read this. God communicates sweetness and interior delight to these adept souls more abundantly now. It overflows into their senses with so much greater ease than before. The sensory purification. Now the senses are cleansed, they can more readily access the pleasures of the spirit. Notice how sensual the language is. But the sensory component of the soul is, by its very nature, feeble. It will never be able to meet the powerful thrustings of the spirit. And so these fragile adepts cysts in response to communications from the spiritual part of the soul suffer wounds and queasiness, that this fatigues the spirit. As the wise man says, the corruptible body presses down the soul. As a result, the communications cannot be too strong nor too spiritual, even though intensity is required to catalyse divine union with God. It's almost like a technical kind of handbook, isn't it? It's like the Kama Sutra of the soul. The senses which have to share them are just too weak and imperfect to take it. Raptures and transports happen when communion is not purely spiritual. Once divine blessings are imparted straight to the spirit, as they will be to the perfected ones already purified by the second spiritual night, the enchantments and torments of the body cease. The soul enjoys liberation of spirit. Her senses are no longer clouded and carried away. You know, I was thinking about sex and sexuality, as you do, in relation to this month and this angel. And I think there is a real connection between sexuality and spirituality. I really think those two things are very close in essence. And you see, this is where the church has failed us hugely, because the church is so dysfunctional when it comes to sex. It's completely obsessed with it, in the sense that it's very silent when it comes to issues of social justice, but anything to do with sex and it'll speak up. But it's created shame and guilt and judgment around it all, and in doing so it's really pushed it down into the subconscious, into repression, and that's where the demons have a field day, and it gets you have deviancy because of the unhealthy climate around it all. So really this month will be a time for healing all of that. And if there's anybody watching this who is aware in your life of issues relating to sexuality in any way, then opening your heart and your mind to the filter of Archangel Zaphkiel is really going to be helpful to you, enriching and healing. You're going to get some sexual healing. You know, there's that song by Marvin Gaye. There's a copy of it by Kate Bush. I don't know if you've heard it. I love Kate Bush, and I do know actually there will be one person watching this who likewise really loves her. And it was a song that she released. She went away for a long time, didn't she? She went quiet, and then she came back with a song called King of the Mountain, I think it was. It was a single, but on the B-side she recorded Sexual Healing, and she always says it like that. She says sexual rather than sexual. She doesn't say sh, she says sexual, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful song. And I mean, she knew about this spiritual nature, and you know, I think that people are rediscovering this, really, really do, and you can see it in so many ways, because we're not seeking in this age where we have instant gratification. We're not even having to search for things of a sexual nature anymore. It's so readily available to us that that kind of underground seediness thing that you used to have when I grew up. You know, they were always on the top shelf publications, you know, that you couldn't reach and you couldn't look inside. And now pornography and images and eroticism is just so readily available in many ways. But what people are realising is that we're wanting more than the instant physical gratification, which is just fleeting, but it doesn't really satisfy. And so what we're seeking is something a lot more authentic, an authentic connection with another human being to make us feel fully human. And there is always this little yearning for source. You know, I forget what the name is, but the French have a word for orgasm. I forget what it actually is, the word. I just know that the meaning of it is little death. It means little death. And I think that's really interesting because there is a sense in which you want to completely be annihilated and lose the separate self. That sense of being separate is just momentarily lost in the union. Apparently orgasm is the only time that you, from a physiological point of view, lose complete control. Your senses just shut down. Didn't know if you knew that. Must only be for a fraction of a second. The only other time when it happens is when you sneeze. But you see where I'm going with this. How it's the same impulse, and it's really important that you hear this, because if you have any sense of guilt or shame around sexuality in your life, in what you've done with it, where you've gone with your thoughts, think back to what I said yesterday, in case you're watching this and you haven't seen the November Reconnective Healing live stream. I talked about how the collective unconscious is constantly seeping into our minds, and we think our thoughts are our own, but it's not necessarily. It's what we are unconsciously attracting and drawing in. And if we have a strong desire, and then if you're somebody that's got a lot of passion, you're more likely to be somebody who can develop an addiction, just because you've got so much passion and so much love to give and so much creativity within you. Okay, and so at the lower frequency stuff that you're drawing in can become attaching itself, what people might call the entities, but it can hold you in an addiction. And that, as for reasons I've said, can become deviant because of the way the mind works and pushes things down, and the shadow self doesn't have time to come up and be integrated, and so, as I say, the demons have a field day with you, and you just feel this guilt and shame and unworthiness. But this filter that we're going to be using is not taking away the desire, not condemning it, not demonizing it. It's integrating it and actually raising it up, raising it to a different level. And you know, the key thing with this is to be genuine, authentic and honest. If you still have desires of a certain nature, then you need to be true to that. I mean, I don't really know what I'm saying to you. I'm obviously, not if it's something illegal. I just mean be honest and be real and be true to that. And until you yourself know that that is not satisfying the real need. And then what you'll do is you'll refine your choice, that your desires change as you grow. And so allow yourself to really look at where that desire starts from, because the desire itself is pure. I really want you to hear that. Trace it back, trace it back. And you might even trace a point where it actually became deviant, if it did, or in your mind became deviant, and why you made that judgment about it. But by inviting in this energy of Zaphkiel, what we're doing is we're asking for sexual healing, so that everything that is in our psyche, in our heart, in our whole body, in our sexuality is being refined and purified. And I do hope you know what I mean by that word, purified. It means raised up to its best, in its highest vibration. Okay? That's all it means. So that the bliss is more authentic and real and lasting. And doesn't leave you feeling really crap afterwards. Okay? That's what I mean. So I'm going to light a candle now. It feels the right thing to do. Light a candle, and I'm going to read a prayer to Zaphkiel, an invitation. If you want to do this for this month and then observe and allow. You might even want to journal. It might be a good thing to do. Dear Archangel Zaphkiel, please hold us gently in this moment through your deep and unending passion, and allow your sacred love to inflame our ardour to the heights of new love. At the same time, allow us to feel your gentle caress, so that we may pledge ourselves to heal through love. Please see us as two who passionately seek compassion, so that we may surrender to the greatness of your sacred love. Please allow us the possibility of rising through grace to a richer sunset and sunrise, so that we may marvel in the glory of the source, feeling ourselves touched by the ecstasy of your divine nature. And please bring to all our creative outpourings opportunity to fire, reaching a fruition of joy that transfixes our love. So be it. Amen. Thank you for joining me once again.